Okay, so now we're going to kind of expand a little bit more on this criterion domain and talk about what kinds of things fall into job performance. So here we've got a model that shows there's going to be objective task performance, subjective task performance, personnel measures, and contextual performance together, which create the criterion domain or job performance, right? And so these different criteria that go into the criterion domain can be objective. They're hard, non-judgmental. You just take it from the records. It's not supposed to involve any subjective judgments. The most typical is productivity, right? So we find that, often when I am evaluated on the criterion domain, an objective criteria that my dean might use to evaluate me would be the scores on a student evaluation, right? What's the average score on the student eval or something like this? So it's intended to be hard and non-judgmental, okay? Something just very quantifiable, all right? So some quantifiable things that might be perhaps used in the criterion domain could be, absences, latencies, although these fall into the category of personnel measures, but grievances, but here it is, productivity, right? Products produced per day, sales volume per month, whatever it might be, but it could also be counterproductive behaviors like theft and things of this nature. The criterion domain can also be composed of subjective or criterion, soft or judgmental. These are performance appraisals or ratings. This is the manager says on a scale of 1 to 10, how effective is this employee? We'll definitely talk more about this in the performance appraisal topic, okay, a module rather, okay? So it's got some issues. Personnel measures, which we just already pointed out, could be things like absences and tardiness and accidents, and again, very quantifiable. And so in a lot of ways, personnel measures can be considered to be objective criterion. Okay? But the most interesting part of job performance, or the criterion domain, rephrase that, of job performance, is not necessarily task performance. And that's what we've just talked about, the objective criteria, the subjective criteria, the personnel measures, etc. But instead, what's more interesting is perhaps contextual performance. And many, many businesses fail to incorporate contextual performance into their evaluation systems, to their detriment, by the way. Okay? So what's the difference between task performance and contextual performance? Task performance is going to be different from every single job. How do you define successful job performance? It depends on the job. What job are you doing? Okay? But when it comes to contextual performance, you're going to find that it's very similar across jobs because it involves like helping our colleagues or something like that. So task performance is very, very, very specific to a specific job, whereas contextual performance exists across the continuum. Okay? So on the positive side, contextual performance is partly composed of organizational citizenship behaviors, or OCBs, on-the-job behaviors that are valuable, not required, they're valuable. We're talking about collegiality, being friendly, just smiling in the workplace is a very big deal, right? These kinds of organizational citizenship behaviors. In fact, I remember one time, this is a true story. When I was in Missouri, there was one faculty that filled out their annual report, and they were wanting to, they were trying to quantify to the dean, this is my job performance, and in an attempt to snag the organizational citizenship behaviors, he actually reported that he had gotten the flu shot, which helped prevent sickness from spreading in the workplace, and so he should be basically, rewarded because he got a flu shot. But, it's true, though, that getting a flu shot is a component of organizational citizenship behaviors, things that help the company in a non-quantitative fashion, but truly do, okay? So these are often related to conscientiousness, altruism, sportsmanship, all right, civic virtue, but even company pride or something of this nature. So lots of different things. Yeah, common courtesy. I mean, it goes a long way. On the opposite side, in the contextual performance dimension, is counterproductive work behaviors. They still fall into contextual performance, but these are the bad ones. So these are the good ones, these are the bad ones. And some of the most obvious ones are theft, sabotage, abuse of others, or withdrawal behaviors. And as we discussed in the last video, you're likely to get counterproductive work behaviors if at the end of a performance management or the evaluation of your job performance, if you say, no fair, I don't think that what you measured is a reflection of my performance, no fair, I'm going to start to steal things, I'm going to start to do all kinds of stuff, okay? So obviously, counterproductive work behavior is a bad thing for an organization. We find it's somewhat related to personality factors. There are some in there, in the same way that, say, for example, organizational citizenship behaviors are often connected to the personality factor of conscientiousness. We find connecting personality factors as well. But despite the fact that there's some connection between personality factors and counterproductive work behaviors, we find, and I did one little jump into the world of criminal justice at one point, just for a research project background for a research project. And it was pretty straightforward. I was trying to predict who commits crime, basically. And the single best predictor of who will commit crime or steal something is who has an opportunity to steal things, all right? Who has the opportunity to be in a room with expensive items with no cameras or supervision. That's the person that's going to steal things no matter how sweet she might be, okay? So clearly it's related to these things, right? And yeah, sometimes the same people can exhibit both, all right? So clearly counterproductive work behaviors are not always easy to define because it could involve sabotage, it could be backbiting, it could be a lot of different things depending on the context of your organization. So obviously an organization would like to prevent counterproductive work behaviors. And so, look, this is simply straightforward out of learning theory. This is operant conditioning 101. What influences the effectiveness of a punisher? Punishment that is prompt, certain, it is predictable, it is strong, it is justified. As we learn in learning class, you do not, oh, you did something naughty, pat on the wrist, and then later on move up to fight. No. Whatever your maximum punishment is, give it immediately, give it with no questions asked, and you give it as strong as you're going to give it, okay? And so exposing to models that do not engage in, okay, training can help. Putting angry people in a better mood can help. And designing assessment devices that are fair can help. So there's lots of things that we can do to minimize counterproductive work behaviors. So as we've found in this topic as a whole, that the idea of job performance is ultimately what we want to measure, but boy is it hard for so many reasons, because it is only a very few aspects of job performance that are objective, quantifiable, and not subject to some kind of a bias. Okay?